So yes, welcome to Authentic Intelligence. A little bit of information about Harvey and Hugo. Essentially, there's information there on the side, but you're wondering really which one is Harvey and which one is Hugo out of the two dogs. Well, Harvey is the grey one and Hugo is the brown one. And 14 years ago now, they inspired me to set up my PR and marketing business. Now, back then, we were on the cusp of a social media revolution, and probably never would I have imagined that there would be an AI revolution, but here we are. And as an agency, we're embracing AI tools and we want to share with you our journey. But just before we start, a quick disclaimer to say that we aren't experts in tech. We are not experts in AI. I believe there are very few people that are, because it is so fast moving. Perhaps the inventors of Bard at Google, ChatGPT, they are the experts, but we're doing our best to understand it. Becky is our resident expert within the comms sphere. And ever since it emerged back in, was it November 21, Becky's been researching, keeping us on our toes and making sure we're using it. So these are the topics that we'll be discussing today. Yeah, a lot of it kind of be relating back to kind of what actually is AI and how can we use it to make our lives better? What are our secret weapons against it? And how can we be authentically intelligent? We did a quick poll for people attending this event today, and I just want to share those results before we start, and we may well do an exit poll to see if any opinions have changed. So about a third of people here today are using AI. About a third aren't using it and don't intend to. And then there's a third who aren't using it but would like to. So hopefully that final third will be using it by the end of this. Just a quote here as well. There's no reason and no way that a human mind will be able to keep up with an artificial intelligence machine by 2035. It's quite scary. I mean, really, I think it'll be sooner that we're struggling. Like the intelligence of these machines are going to be just so significant to our little brains, our little computers that we have. And then AI, Elon, not committing either way. It'll either be the best or worst thing ever for humanity. So yeah, that gives us a lot of hope and a lot of despair all at the same time. Thanks, Elon. But what is AI anyway? Let's head over to Becky, who's going to explain a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so before you say you're never going to use AI, which 33% of people said in our little poll, just have a little look at this slide. So essentially, Face ID on your phone, Amazon Alexa, the algorithms that power Netflix and Facebook and Instagram and Google, all of these things are happily powered by artificial intelligence. But obviously, it wasn't until ChatGPT landed in November last year that it became such a massive buzzword. So pre-ChatGPT, discussions about AI were mostly the domain of sci-fi fans such as myself. But fast forward 6 months and it really is everywhere you turn. Some people are claiming it's going to be the end for humanity. Other people are hailing it as our savior. But as usual, the truth is somewhere in between. So just like fire and electricity, like the internet and social media, AI isn't good or bad. It all depends on how we use it, and it isn't going away. So Fortune Business Insights say that the size of the worldwide AI market is anticipated to increase at a CAGR of 20.1% from $387 billion last year to $1,394 billion by 2029. So it's going to be big. So first of all, let's clarify what we actually mean when we talk about artificial intelligence. So we're not talking about sentient robots yet. We're talking about machine learning. So in the 60s, scientists were teaching computers how to mimic human decision-making, and that developed into research where the robots were taught to learn for themselves, remember their mistakes. And until recently, this machine learning was limited to predictive models. So they were observing and classifying patterns in content. So, for instance, a classic machine learning problem is to start with an image or several images of cute cats, like these ones you see here. So the program would then identify patterns among them and scrutinize random images for ones matching the cute cat pattern. But with generative AI, rather than simply perceiving and classifying a photo of a cat, the AI is able to create an image or text description of a cat on demand. And that's kind of how models like ChatGPT work. They predict the next word in a given text based on the patterns that the AI has learned during its training process. So ChatGPT was trained on a massive data set of text, essentially the entire internet, to enable it to generate human-like responses to our prompts that we put in. So today we're going to be talking about this generative AI, and in particular ChatGPT, because that's what's causing the most excitement and that's what's having the most impact on comms. So you might have seen Coca-Cola making headlines in May with their new advert, which was partly produced by AI. Drake was in the spotlight when a TikTok user used AI to clone his voice to produce a viral hit. And then in June, NewsQuest, just last month, announced their first AI-powered journalist was going to be starting writing stories for them.
But what does all this rise of AI mean for your business? Well, if companies fail to make artificial intelligence a core competency within the next 5 years, they will face either stagnation or elimination. So the key factor is keep learning. Don't get left behind. This is just like the emergence of the internet in the 90s. Those that ignored it and said it wasn't going to be a thing, they were disadvantaged going forward. Same with social media. And we're kind of saying at the moment that AI won't necessarily take your job. It's more likely that a person skilled and used to using AI will be replacing those that are not using AI. How can you use AI and what is it good at? Automating routine work is really important. Think about all those repetitive tasks, such as preparing reports, preparing recaps for meetings. It can help with those. It can do all of the heavy lifting and help free up your time for the more creative space. It's also incredibly important for research, accessing and organizing knowledge, and it can help increase productivity and efficiency by doing all that, helping you save time to focus on the elements that really are important to you.
So since ChatGPT arrived, there's been an explosion in AI tools and plugins. So if you want to try your hand at generating art, you can try a program called Midjourney. Synthesia will help you generate video. You can use Decipher to summarize transcripts, Otter to take meeting notes for you, so you don't have to scribble things down in meetings. If you want to book a holiday, you can get the ChatGPT Expedia plugin to do that for you. And there's a great site called futuretools.io where you can literally tick the boxes of the things you'd like to do, and it will show you the exact tools that you can use to enable you to do that. So that's well worth checking out. But as a basic starting point, we would say try ChatGPT for text and try Microsoft Bing Image Creator for imagery. They're both easy to use. There are free versions of both of them, and they do have some of the best basic capabilities as well. So when you're using these tools, the first skill you'll need to learn is prompt engineering, and prompt engineers are going to become more and more highly sought after. The basic template that you want to use is role, task, background, action. So you don't want to put something, instead of saying, write me a blog about ISAs, you might say something like, you're an expert in finance. You know how to put complex language into an easy to understand format. Your first task is to create a short blog to explain how ISA investments work to college students. Write the blog in a professional tone of voice. So you'll put that prompt in with all that information, and in a matter of seconds, ChatGPT will give you a beautiful blog in response. So here's one that it created yesterday when we were putting this presentation together. And similarly, with image prompts, there are common templates, but you can be creative. But these are some of the things that you can put in there. So the content and the subject you'd like in the image, the description of any action or mood, the art form, any artist references you want to put in there, any additional settings such as lighting, colours and framing. So these are some that I created on Microsoft Bing Image Creator. So this one, the prompt was a red-haired woman riding a horse through a glade. And this is what Bing has created for me. And then this next one, a red-haired woman riding a horse through a glade while children look on in the style of Monet. So that's the beautiful artwork that it created for me for that one. And then in terms of actual workflow itself, Microsoft Copilot is set to be the next real game changer. So there's lots of chat about this at the moment. Apparently it's going to be able to create first drafts in Microsoft Word in seconds, create presentations in PowerPoint with a single prompt, analyze Excel data in seconds, clear your outbox in minutes. We're not quite sure how it's going to do that, but apparently it can. Summarize meeting discussions in Teams for you. It's going to be available later this year, but it's coming as a preview with Windows 11, and it's set to essentially revolutionize the way the world of work and our day-to-day things that we do. And Google Duet won't be far behind either. That's Google's answer to it. But before you get too excited about creating all this text and imagery and reducing your workflow, there are some things you need to be aware of. So there are issues with inaccuracy in the AI models because of errors in the data used to train the systems. And there are instances where the AI will actually begin to hallucinate and make up information as it tries to find the next most likely words. So you do have to fact check the material that it produces for you. There's also the issue with Google flagging up certain AI written content as well and pushing it down the search results. So make sure you're not just generating content, publishing it straight to your website without giving it that final human check, which is really important. And then in terms of your data, you need to be aware of the fact that the data we're putting into these models, it's used to improve them. It's stated in their terms of service. So don't enter sensitive company or proprietary information into these chatbots because you could inadvertently be disclosing it to a third party. Samsung employees unintentionally did this. They shared sensitive data with GPT, which led to 3 major security breaches in just 20 days. So don't be like Samsung. And there's also the reputational risk of fake imagery and fake videos being produced as well, of world leaders and public figures. This is another real concern. And while images like this might make us smile, they're kind of funny memes, they can obviously be used maliciously as well. Often it's just impossible to tell whether an image is real or fake. Lots of people thought that the one of the Pope was real, but there can be some giveaways. So some AI systems have a really hard time generating realistic looking hands, like these beautiful 6-fingered ones here. And deep fake videos sometimes have an issue with blinking because they've been trained on images of celebrities with their eyes wide open. Though they are improving all the time. And ironically, it might be AI that will solve this problem for us. And there are universities in the US at the moment that think they have kind of solved this with a 96% accuracy. So it is improving. And then finally, a story popped up on the news last week about AI poisoning itself. So eventually, ChatGPT and other generative AI programs will have ingested almost every human-made bit of digital material there is. And as the internet is filled with more and more AI generated content, it's going to be hard to separate the human stuff from the synthetic. And that's a problem for 2 reasons. So despite their advances, generative AI often contains biases and errors, just the way it's been trained. And these mistakes migrate into future iterations. And if it happens over and over again, they're just amplified over time. And it also produces outputs that are most probable based on its training data. So each successive AI trained on past AI would lose information on improbable events and compound these errors too. So Ted Chiang, the science fiction author, called this the digital equivalent of repeatedly making photocopies of photocopies in the old days. The image quality only gets worse. But just in case AI doesn't eat itself and the tech companies do figure it all out, let's talk about those secret weapons that we mentioned earlier.
So AI may excel at 90% of the jobs to be done, but it's that crucial final 5 to 10% that will make you stand out. And you might think, oh, well, 90%, that's good enough. But really, it's not. If you look at athletes, about 99% of their training, their nutrition, it's all the same. It's that extra 1%, or sometimes that extra 0.001% that makes the difference between winning. And the same has to be applied to content as well. So what are your secret weapons in the fight against AI? The first one is creativity. It's the hardest challenge for AI. As with Becky already explaining some of the ways that it gathers its information, it goes on trust, and it goes on information that 99% of sources say is kind of the right thing to do, and it uses that. It's that 1% that it will discount. So it's most likely to pick up the most popular, the most repeated, the most conventional content, which is not the most creative. Our creativity is going to have to come from our own brains. Also, a lot of the information from AI and that it's using is from the past. It's backwards looking. And yes, you could argue a lot of ideas are circular and everything comes full circle, but we need new ideas that are going to drive us forward from our human brains. We've already discussed the Drake song and the fact that it was a massive popular hit that AI created. However, it was Drake's originality in the first place, and it was just replicating Drake's style, Drake's similar lyrics, Drake's voice. So we do need that creativity. It's so important as we move forward. The next superpower is humanity, as this quote quite explains. So embrace who you are, double down on being human. People will thrive in the future who excel and empathize. I can't say that word, and ideate. Those things double down on being human. We want connection. It is so frustrating when we think we're dealing with a machine. Who has called a call center or even answered the phone to a robotic voice, kind of explaining what you need to go through, the process, and you can tell it's not human. It really annoys us. Even on LinkedIn, those automated responses that you can share in the chat, in the direct message function, I've never clicked on one because it doesn't authentically feel real to me to use one. And if I feel that I get one from someone, it just doesn't feel right. And I downgrade the relationship because it just, if you can't kind of authentically communicate with me, then it's not what I want to hear. So just as true as in business, it also works for everything else. It's about relationships. It's about humanity. And this quote from Jan says, our intelligence is what makes us human, and AI is an extension of that quality. Artificial intelligence is extending what we can do with our abilities. In this way, it's letting us become more human. And there's a lot of appeal for this with AI. If it can do all that heavy lifting, a lot of the busy work, we will have more time for human connections, for getting out face to face, building relationships. Maybe it'll go back to pre-internet where we can have time for lunch again, chat with our clients over lunch, chat with journalists over lunch, because all of the heavy lifting, all of the busy work will be done in place of it. And now I just want to dig into these two definitions. The word artificial is sometimes lost using the acronym of AI, but actually, as we all know, it stands for artificial. And I'm not going to read the definition down the side there, but I just want you to kind of absorb that because, yeah, essentially it is artificial. Now, if we look at the definition of authentic, it's completely the opposite of that. And it's this authentic communication that builds trust and credibility. And the opposite of that, artificial, destroys it. And for me, it's the trust and credibility which come from the humanity, come from the human content, the relationships that we build. So what does this mean for your comms?
So it essentially means that a grind is out and paw prints are in. So we just mean it's no longer about that heavy lifting, as Charlotte said, because AI tools can do this for you. It's about those personal touches. So the avalanche of content being created by AI does mean that it's harder than ever for your business to stand out. And that's why you need to double down on being human, being creative, and doing the things that AI can't do. And we think that this is going to increase the need for curation and for digital PR. Because AI models, as we said earlier, they look for the most relevant sources of information. And these are often the most cited or from the most authoritative source. So for example, in Bing Chat, often the top result that appears is from a major news website. So this means that PR is going to be more important than ever. You'll need to get stories and opinion pieces placed on quality websites and publications with high domain authority in order to be seen, rather than having lots and lots and lots of content, which was the way that people used to do it. So you can't afford to be generic, basically, in the future. You have to be uniquely you. You're going to cut through by showing up as a real human in a real body with original thoughts and ideas based on real experiences.
So how can you do that? So right now, we recommend, again, creating that human content that's going to create trust and credibility, because it's trust and credibility that builds successful brands, and you can sell products and services off the back of that. So podcasts, video, thought leadership pieces are really important. People want to hear your thoughts, your opinions, so they can be sure they're not speaking to a machine. In-person events, I'm sure they will get more and more popular. I think, as I'll recap at the end, we might well also go back to the traditional way of working in many aspects. Speaking engagements, real life networking, and sharing expertise like press conferences will all be really important. The AI assisted agency. So that is kind of where we see ourselves at the moment. So what are we using it for? We're eliminating busy work, all those things that we talked about, the repetitive side of things, like note-taking, producing outlines, transcribing audio, audience research, summarizing content, and iterating on ideas. Note, it's iterating, coming up with that creative thoughts that's still coming from our brains at Harvey and Hugo, but we're using the machines to then help iterate that. All of that is leading to more time for big creative ideas, more in-person content, more of the same from that last slide, and more in-person events as well, more about that relationship building. Relationships are becoming more and more important because of AI. It's important to, well, we feel it's important to also recruit candidates who are embracing AI, with it being the future. Just like, again, 15 years ago, we felt it was important to recruit candidates that believed in social media as well. We want that knowledge. And then how much we use it is up to us and up to our clients. So on the pay-as-you-go side, we've created a range of products that are powered by AI. It mainly involves us prompt engineering. That's where we're adding our expertise, creating that prompt that's going to deliver the right result based on your brief. And then also at the end of the output from, say, ChatGPT, we can then check it and edit it where we need to and make sure we're adding that extra 5 to 10% that we talked about. Equally, there will be an AI-free range of snacks, just like gluten-free. There are businesses that, for all those risks that Becky mentioned, do not want anything to do with AI, and that is totally fine as well. We will make sure that we are not using AI to give away, perhaps if it's highly secretive products or services that we're writing about, we won't use it. How are we passing on the services for our Harvey and Hugo customers? So where we're using it for research and it's saving time, we're able to spend that time again on things that matter to the client, whether that's relationship building, generating value in another way through the video, audio services. So some key takeaways, and we will do a little doggy bag PDF that we can send to you afterwards as well. But essentially, AI isn't going anywhere. As much as you might hate it or not be wanting to embrace it, it is going to be part of our future lives. And a lot of it, although often confused with machine learning, it is still today. So some tools to try: ChatGPT, Bing Image Generator. Keep an eye out for Copilot, because if you think AI is revolutionizing things, that is really going to stir things up. And then this future tools link is really useful. You can apply filters to it based on the type of services that you do and what you might need AI for. And it suggests a range of paid for and also free AI tools. We use some of these and we experiment with some of them, and it's really useful. Make sure you're using digital PR to give your brand that online authority. I would also add to that, use traditional PR too, because that's going to be important, and it can also form part of an insurance policy, which I'll come on to. And remember that your humanity and your creativity are your two secret weapons against AI. Now, I will add for now, because who knows what's going to happen. And look into the future, if you wanted kind of my opinion on where it might go, I think in 30 years or so, yes, it may well be able to do all these things that we're talking about now that are our advantage. However, I think short term, it can create a lot of problems. If we think about social media and all the deep fakes and fake news that's out there everywhere, it's only going to get worse. It's going to amplify so much, especially when there's fake videos. And Becky was showing me software yesterday about you put in a brief content or a blog, you put in your voice and your image, and it can create a podcast for you, which, you know, it does blow your mind. So eventually it's going to be the case of, who do you trust? You know, especially with politician deepfakes being created, where is that trust? Where's the trusted sources that we go to? And I think we will go back to kind of trusted journalism, whether that's TV, online, you know, maybe even print, and a lot more in-person events, because for all we're endorsing, do more podcasts, do more video, etc. now, that's still trusted right now. And things like this webinar, I'd like to think is trusted. However, in the future, the next kind of, I'd say 1 to 2 years, you might not be sure that if you're speaking to a robot right now. So that's kind of what kind of I think the immediate future is holding. So make sure you're investing in your traditional PR. But more scarily, and again, this is just a hypothesis, there's arguments for the AI taking over and taking over our digital world, and they might not want us tampering with that world, so they just shut down completely from us. Now, what would you do if you could not use any digital devices ever again? Instantly, overnight, it's gone. So these sort of things worry me. These sort of things keep me up at night. And so I'm kind of creating insurance policies for my business, you know, and going back old school. So, you know, print, I think print might become something that's very valid again in the future. It's still very valid now, but again, it increased. So you think kind of pre-internet, what will we doing to market and use PR our businesses? And it may well go back to that space. So one thing I would end this on is just, it's really important to build brands right now. It's always really important, but with this AI threat, it's more important than ever. You need to build your capital in the minds of your ideal customers, because actually, if there was that full digital shutdown, it's the memorability and it's that emotion, that positive feeling that people will associate with your brand, and that can't be taken away. So, any questions? I'll come out of the slides so we can see you. And then if anyone has any questions, please do let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're feeling shy, you can use the chat box. Hi, Emily. Yes, fire away.
Hello. So apologies, I might have missed this at the beginning because I joined late because apparently I didn't have Zoom installed on my new computer with my new role. So apologies for that. So it took a while to download it on the Wi-Fi. With this this sort of chat thing and the images and things like that, not royalties, but licenses and stuff like that. How does that work? If that was something you covered off before I joined, apologies. But
no, we didn't actually. So it's a good point. Becky, do you want to lead with this?
Yeah, well, they're still trying to figure this out at the moment. Google came out, I think it was literally a couple of days ago, essentially saying that anything on the internet was fair game. But there are kind of lawyers figuring it all out, and it is that there's lots of authors and things in America, because I follow the author community as well, that are complaining that the AIs have been trained on the books that they've written and things, and they're trying to sue some of the people that have created the chatbots. So it's all very up in the air at the moment. You do have to be careful with what you're using. People advise that when you're putting these prompts in, you don't necessarily use people's names. So if there's a famous writer or a famous artist, don't necessarily use their name in the prompt, because that could
then it
bring
will
up
pull
issues
their content.
Yeah,
right.
and while it's not kind of set in stone at the moment, that could be an issue in the future. So rather than do that, just put that actual style that you want in. But yeah, it's an ever-changing thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of debate as well about who owns the content that, say, again, ChatGPT produces. Is it the prompt engineer that has sparked that, or does it belong to the chatbot? I've heard different things. I've heard that the last thing I heard was that it belonged to the prompt engineer because you're the one that orchestrated that. However, legally, again, they could go back to those initial prompts because I believe everything's saved, everything's tracked. Yeah, interesting.
Interesting. So all these IP lawyers are going to be like, and it'll depend on the country or jurisdiction, I should suspect, because it'll be different per state, or it might be different. There'll be never, and this is global, isn't it? So it's going to be really interesting how this sort of thing pans out, really.
And how do you police it? Even if
Well,
they just create these laws, how do you police that? So it might well be that then people stop putting things on the internet. And this is again that more traditional route. People might say, actually, I've got this really interesting thought leadership piece. I'm going to give it to the Sunday Times, for example, but I don't want it to go online. So this might spark off the print revolution again. People saying, I'm going to go to the shops and buy this newspaper in person because I know that there's things that people don't want online. So there's another interesting take on it all.
Yeah, that is really interesting, to be fair. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask, I don't know if you've got any thoughts around kind of how workplaces should approach it. So obviously when social media came in, everyone came up with policies and things like that. Is the right approach to kind of have a policy? Because I think a lot of the time it's great because you go away and you test it out. And I've done a lot of kind of testing on daft things to see how it works. But there's almost a risk of people going and doing it without understanding it properly. Should there be guidance within everybody's individual workplaces on how to kind of approach that, if that makes sense?
I think there should. Again, I don't know the answers of what exactly is the right thing to be putting in the policies, but it will be like social media, as you've referenced, in terms of often the people that are using it day to day will know more than perhaps the senior people within the business. And so they'll always have that advantage. So I recommend it's just about learning from all areas of the business, particularly the senior levels. So they know they can also then cross-reference and check if the work that's being produced is a copy, if it's being made by ChatGPT. And this is where, again, I think it's still, there's a massive need for the specialisms like, say, PR, accountancy, because they can then check and cross-reference it. Whereas someone might say, oh, I can set up a business in anything now because ChatGPT will help me, but they won't know what good looks like or what excellent looks like. But yeah, the implications for a lot of staff using it and the harm that could potentially be done, because they can be trained, these AIs. We train them in the style, and we create separate chats for each client so they get to know the style and tone of it. So people can train them however they want, which hopefully would mainly lead to positivity. But, not everyone is good in the world, unfortunately.
And just to kind of make the staff aware about these potential data breaches and things, to make sure that junior and senior members of staff aren't putting sensitive information into them that can be then just shared across the web.
Yeah, I think that's a big point from kind of our point of view. Definitely, it's that you want people to be able to use these tools, especially in Excel and especially from a data point of view. But obviously that data that's going into it can be highly sensitive. So yeah, I think that is a really good point.
Yeah, they are going to apparently come out with kind of a black box version, but that hasn't happened just yet.
Did you have a question, Andrew?
I think actually it's been answered in a way. The only thing which I would add now is having two sons who've just completed GCSEs. One wants to go into medicine, the other one's thinking about law. I'm thinking maybe I should talk to them about IP.
Maybe, but like I said, if it just becomes impossible. I mean, the content that's shared on social media, it used to be, if you look at all the media licenses that we subscribe to or used to when we were dealing with that sort of media, it's impossible to police that now. Really, no one should share a photograph of anything media related on social media unless you have a special license. But they don't.
I can't even put a picture of one of my sons on social media. He refuses.
But yeah, it's you might think, and that's what makes it so interesting, but also a bit scary. It's creating all these opportunities, but it might solve the problem itself and create its own way of policing it and IP. But then will we trust it because it's its own thing? It's just a minefield. Does anybody else have any questions? No. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we will share those takeaway points with you. And yeah, if you do have any questions that are comms and AI related, because yes, we don't know everything about AI, certainly in the other areas, then please do let us know.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Okay,
Most
thank
insightful.
you.
Thank
Have
you.
a lovely day,
That's
everyone.
excellent. Thank
Bye.
you.
Enjoy your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.